These orange beauties have inspired me to take all the orange cards out of this Prism Oracle deck that I have. And we are going to pull one of them to get kind of a theme for the reading, and then I'll use the tarot to get some messages from Spirit for you about that theme in your life at the time you find this video. So with that said, we will mix up these 5 orange cards and see what theme we will be exploring in this reading. Okay, I'm gonna take a breath. This one, ooh, frustration. So we'll read about the frustration card, and then, like I said, we'll grab the tarot. Before getting into this particular card, though, let's read about orange in general. It says, orange combines the fiery energy of red with the optimism of yellow, like a sunrise signaling a new day or a burst of citrus. It can elicit feelings of warmth, happiness, and high energy. As a friendly, playful hue, orange can give off a sense of joy when worn. Like red, orange is a stimulating color. In fact, it is sometimes used in fast food restaurants as a device to keep people moving. Working with orange in color magic can help you, working with orange in color magic can help you curb procrastination, giving you a boost of energy in order to move forward with your goals. It says orange cards in a reading is a sign to really tap into joy and playfulness during this period of life. Orange is full of energy, which can be invigorating, but can also be overstimulating. How are these energies emerging in your life right now? Are you feeling Are you feeling excited, or is the energy feeling a little too intense? If it's too intense, take a moment to release that energy with a sense of play. Now is the time to take a moment and celebrate all the joy that is apparent within your life in all the forms it takes. Okay, so the frustration card says, for some reason, despite all of your best efforts, you aren't able to achieve what you are working toward, and that's frustrating. Instead of getting angry or disappointed, take a step back or a break from whatever is going on. What are some alternative approaches to the situation? Is there a solution that you haven't tried yet? Would a new perspective help you find a solution? Well, that's very interesting because I literally just recorded a reading like minutes before this, and it was about kind of, now that I'm processing it, it was kind of about frustration to a certain extent. A lot of the advice was about like taking a step back. We talked about like the sunk cost fallacy and taking some time to survey your options and like reevaluate certain things and strategize. So I will link that video up in the description box of this video because I'm wondering if there could be some helpful things, some helpful insights in there for you as well. But now let's get some messages from the tarot on this concept of frustration. So clearly this reading is about whatever area of your life is currently, it's currently frustrating you, whether that's been a chronic frustration or an acute frustration. Let's get at least one more card here, please. Maybe 2 more. Messages for the viewer to help them better understand what is frustrating them, why. Oh, interesting. Okay. We're doing a 3-card spread now. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Because this Queen of Swords in reverse wasn't speaking to me until, okay, so card 1, what is frustrating you? Getting a clear sense of like underneath the obvious frustration, what is actually frustrating you? Card 2, why it's frustrating you. And card 3 is going to be advice for moving beyond the frustration. So finding resolution, remedy, and relief. Okay, I like this. Thanks for thanks for sticking with me as I let the spread unfold. I was just planning on doing just 3 cards as general messages, but I like this much better. So again, card 1 is what, card 2 is why, card 3 is advice. How to move beyond. I definitely think it's this way. Okay. Okay. Wow. Such a pretty imagery to look at. All these bold colors with this bold orange. It's just incredible. Okay, the story of the cards. So the story is very clear and cohesive here. So let me see if I can bring some clear and cohesive words to speak out the energy that I'm feeling. So let's begin with card 1. What is frustrating you? So there's going to be an obvious frustration, but the more root level frustration, whether you're aware of it or not, seems to have something to do with having either too rigid or I'm getting more of the sense, though it's actually on the other end of the continuum, too porous boundaries. Is that how you say it? Your boundaries are too porous. So having maybe not having healthy boundaries in place. Maybe we'll put it that way. So the Queen of Swords to me is typically my card. The way I typically interpret it when it's upright in a really beautiful sense is just a person with really healthy boundaries. And I guess it can be more than that, because typically the swords energy to me, it doesn't just mean boundaries, but it means like choice energy. It means strategy, clear thinking, or it can be a lack of clear thinking, but like it's more of that thinking energy and how we're using our strategy and how we are defining things, right? And so that's why I often think of boundaries when I see the Queen of Swords. So it's in reverse. So to me in this reading, that's telling me that underneath whatever it is that is obvious for you that you are experiencing, so whether that's a health issue, whether that's a relationship issue, a money issue, so on and so forth, underneath it, at the more root level, what's actually going on that is frustrating you is something is out of whack with your boundaries. There's an opportunity to understand / implement healthier practices with boundaries, with how you fill space. You know what I mean? Because that's to me what, I've been on a long and difficult journey, as I think most people, when they enter the healing path, go on with boundaries. At first, I think we often think we don't need them or other people need them, but we don't. And then it can be like too rigid. But the more I'm understanding, the more I'm implementing them, the more they are working, the more I'm understanding them, the more I'm realizing it really is about just filling yourself up, understanding your self energy strongly, and then understanding what you need to keep that self energy protected. And, one quote I love, I see it all the time on Instagram, but I don't know who to attribute it to, so my apologies. It's not my own, but I love it. And it's something like, boundaries are the space like I need to love you and to love me, at the same time. So with people that we are more in alignment with our values and visions, and we have a more intimate relationship with, we don't often need as much space, right? Because we can be more intimate with those people and not lose ourselves, still love ourselves and love others. But there's other people in our life that are more tricky, right? And so in order to not give up ourself, but also be kind and loving with them, there is space that is needed, right? And so this is definitely a invitation to look into boundary work. I don't know if that's how you say it, but hopefully you understand what I mean. To learn what you can from therapists, from books, from YouTube, wherever you need to, about just like what are boundaries, how to start to practice them, and the journey that each of us goes on as we more and more take up our rightful space. So boundaries are never power over. It's just all of us being empowered, right? And each of us looking at places where we were disempowered and taking up our rightful space instead. So I think one thing that I've learned on my journey with boundaries is that discomfort is an inevitable part of that process. There was a long period of time where I was unconsciously like trying to avoid that discomfort. And so then I was like kidding myself that I was actually like taking up more space, right? I was kidding myself that I was actually practicing stronger, healthier boundaries because I didn't know that. I thought I was supposed to feel good about them. Like I thought if I am being empowered and I am making relationship dynamics healthier, then I should always feel, or it should feel good, right? And at one part of my journey, I began to realize through the support of others, through the others such as therapists who have way more education and knowledge on this than I do, teaching me through their courses and books and so on and so forth, that if you're not uncomfortable, you're not actually doing boundary work, which just sucks so bad, doesn't it? Like sucks so bad. And it's also nice to realize, right? Because then you don't have to make yourself so wrong for the discomfort that you feel. So I don't tell you this to like make you scared of boundaries if you're new to them, or boundary work. And I tell you that because I just wish somebody would have told me that sooner, that an important part of the boundary work is being with the discomfort after you set new boundaries. And I think I wish somebody would have told me, in addition, that discomfort won't always be there. That the more you're willing to be with that discomfort, the more capacity you build. And then in the future, the same boundaries or even stronger, healthier ones that you have to set aren't nearly as triggering to your nervous system. And we all have to start where we're at, right? In all areas of life, but certainly with the relationship dynamics that we're in and the boundaries that we need to change, or the boundaries that we've currently set and what needs to change with that. And a part of starting where we are is a willingness to be uncomfortable, but a realization that it's not always going to be that way. So again, whatever obvious frustration you have, what's beneath it at a more root level has something to do with boundary setting. And before I move on from this, I just want to mention that I have a different channel. On that channel, I do more like yoga, Pilates, holistic health stuff. And every once in a while, I include videos on like emotional health and healing. And I have one that I believe I entitled like Healing Toxic Shame or something along those lines. I'll link it up in the description box of this video. But it's a journaling exercise that I lead you through that helps you like work with a framework that I developed called the language of life that helps you to get more root level understanding of discomforts. Okay, so that's why I keep saying like whatever obvious discomfort, whatever obvious frustration you're going through, at the root, what it seems, or at a more root level, what it seems like might be going on, whether you were conscious of it or not, is this like idea of boundaries, idea of who you are, your self energy. There's definitely maybe some like individuation energy going on here too. Like maybe if, just this idea of like you individuating from a group that was you were once enmeshed with. So the whole idea of that video, of that journaling practice, is to guide you through a process that can help you look at your frustrations, the obvious frustrations and discomforts in your life, look at them squarely in the eye without going into that rabbit hole of shame, but then to get information from them that isn't so obvious and superficial, it's more root level, so that you can work towards bringing the frustration into more balance, towards remedy and relief. Because typically what happens is either we avoid it, right? And I don't mean to like laugh at you or laugh at the real discomforts of being human. But I'm just like laughing at the human condition because I can resonate. Like typically we avoid it, right? Or we look at it and we go down the rabbit hole of shame and then we're just still stuck. So if we avoid it, we're stuck. If we look at it and we go down the rabbit hole of shame, we're still stuck. Or we look at it and we try to figure it out from a superficial level, right? But most of the time, what I've realized in my life is our discomforts, it's usually not like fixed from the obvious plane. Usually they're trying to have us go deeper and deeper and deeper to get to the more nuanced, intuitive, just less obvious. They're guiding us to have more understanding of ourselves, which means we have to go a few layers deeper. So I guess that's a really beautiful segue. I'm going to jump here to card 3, to the High Priestess, because this is your advice essentially from Spirit of like what to do about this problem to help bring it more to resolution. And the High Priestess is this beautiful major arcana card of getting into the nuances of life, right? Of like getting to those deeper and deeper layers, understanding yourself in the wells of your soul, not just at this like, oh, I'm this role and I look like this and I do this and I check these things off of my to-do list. It's like getting to the nuances of your spirit. And that is, I mean, as I'm speaking this out, like that is the beautiful aspect of the frustrations we have to deal with, right? Is I believe they are there for a reason. They are the language of life. They're not there to punish us. They're there to help us get to know ourselves at this deeper and deeper level. And as we do that, we more and more embody the High Priestess. And the High Priestess, because she knows herself so deeply, she has this understanding not only of herself, but of life. And she has this intuitive sense of how to get, how her path unfolds. And so I think there's like this invitation for deeper understanding. And then what came out as almost like a clarifier with High Priestess is the 5 of Pentacles in reverse. And to me, that's looking at just where, so even if you're not coming to this reading because you have a frustration with money, I view, so 5 of Pentacles upright can be a really challenging card of like just lack. And it certainly can be viewed as like a lack of money, scarcity, things of that nature. But the way that I view Pentacles is much more general than just money. So I view it more as just like how we are tangibly getting our physical needs met as tangible, nitty-gritty humans. And so there can be a lot of lack. So this could be like exhaustion. It could just be like some things in your life completely out of balance. It could be health issues. So wherever it makes sense in your life, I think there's this like, the advice is as you are letting yourself get to know yourself at these deeper and deeper wells, you're going to understand more why it made sense for you at some point to adopt a paradigm, a philosophy, have beliefs around scarcity. Again, whether that's in your energy, so you're exhausted, whether that's in like your health, in loneliness, in your bank account, you're gonna begin to understand why it was logical for parts of you, probably very young parts of you, like they got stuck at age 3 or at age 7, and they saw life through the lens of scarcity. Okay, and in the family system you were in the subculture you were in, it was actually really wise for you to see it that way, right? To see life through that lens. And as we simply understand more, allow ourselves to go deeper and deeper into our understanding of ourselves and of life, we will naturally like liberate or detox that way of seeing life, that lens of seeing life through. So this isn't like just don't see life through scarcity lens kind of conversation here, because I think that's great to say, but it's been my experience that you can't just like think positively out of these deep level codings that we have from our early conditioning, right? I think if you could, I would have, because I adopted toxic positivity for a very long time. And it didn't solve any of my problems. What has solved my problems is High Priestess energy, which again, to me is a willingness to go deep with understanding. And then as I've gone deep with myself and with life in understanding versus like in defending or not in avoidance or in toxic positivity or, so on and so forth. But no, just like deep, and I want to understand why this happened to me. I want to understand why I continue to perpetuate this, not from a shameful place, but like a deep understanding. And you realize it started probably very young, right? And that young inner child version of you has really good reasons why she has the Five of Pentacles coding, the Five of Pentacles beliefs, the lens through which she sees them. That understanding alone, it flips it and it gently but powerfully detoxes the conditioning, the beliefs that are keeping us stuck. And so I think that is a powerful message that wants to come through. Like, this isn't about having to be positive or good. It's not like a self-improvement that you're needing for this frustration to work towards remedy. It's much more of just like understanding. So as I say all of this, I keep thinking about the internal family systems philosophy of healing, which comes from a therapist whose name is Richard Schwartz. It's a really, really, or let me just speak from my own experience. I have found it to be incredibly, incredibly helpful on my journey of understanding myself more deeply. So if any of this is resonating and you're like, yeah, I think this sounds great, but like, what the hell do I do with what you're telling me? How do you practice high priestess energy, right? I think starting with looking at internal family systems, it's called IFS for short, might be a helpful place to start. So just like search it in YouTube. You'll find some great videos that come up. Any interviews with Richard Schwartz is going to be great. I will also put his book called No Bad Parts. I'll put that title and stuff in the description box in case you want to look up his book. And then in addition, I have on that other channel that I already mentioned where I have that journaling exercise, on that channel, I also have an introduction to internal family systems. So I will link that video up for you as well if you would like more of my experience with it personally. I would be happy to, or I'd be thrilled if you would want to tune in, and happy to link it up in the description box for you. So, oh my gosh, this is actually just like an incredibly powerful reading. So before we get to this middle card, the Hierophant in reverse, I just want to say it's so interesting to me right now. It's just like striking me because we do like this, essentially an orange reading to start, right? Because of these orange flowers. And orange is like sacral plexus, sacral chakra energy. The sacral chakra is like your energy center that's like right below your belly button. And it really has to do more with like desire, flow, freedom. So it's like, it's interesting that frustration comes out because I was like thinking it was going to be more along the lines of that kind of like the fun version of orange, the fun version of the sacral chakra. But I love that actually it's more of the block because I think, I'm thinking of A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles says like, you can't teach the meaning of love, for that's beyond what can be taught. What you can teach is removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. And so I'm like thinking about how like that quote unquote fun energy of the sacral chakra or orange, that flow, the desire, passion, freedom, those are all natural, right? We don't have to like teach those, but what we all do need to do is remove the blocks to what is natural, which is like really looking at what is frustrating us and why, bringing that more deep level understanding to it, and then what is natural can be, right? We don't have to force it. We don't have to like facilitate it. But until we're willing to remove those blocks, it can feel almost like we have to almost do more than we have to do, right? But I think there is this like powerful message here of it is like the more you are focused on removing the blocks versus trying to orchestrate the good, do you know what I mean? The more naturally the good will just be. And in order to remove those blocks, it is less to do with any sort of like personal development, self-help, thinking positive energy, and more to do with just like bringing understanding, more understanding to yourself. And understanding is grounded and wise, but it is also kind. or I should say, and it is also kind. So as we understand ourselves, it's not true understanding if we're like being like, oh, I see why you do that. And you're like pointing your finger at yourself and you're like shaming yourself, right? I think for understanding to actually be what it is, it has to encompass that wisdom and kindness, or it's not true understanding. So I'm just getting a really powerful sense here for you that your problems aren't as deep and dark as you may think. And as I say that, I know they can feel very deep and dark. So this, I'm not trying to like undermine that. So my apologies if it feels like that, while acknowledging how uncomfortable our discomforts can be. I also think there's a lot of levity I'm feeling here, with the potential of so much remedy as you bring, the more you're willing to bring understanding to your frustration versus maybe what you were doing before, which was maybe again like more along the lines of self-help or toxic positivity or shame. Because the hard part about toxic positivity is then eventually, inevitably, we go into toxic shame, right? And so I think there's like, I'm getting this essence of like underlying it all, there was some deep shame that you've been working through, which can be incredibly challenging and can suck a lot of our energy. So I think the more you are willing to baby step by baby step replace shame with understanding, the more you're going to baby step by baby step move towards resolution with this deep frustration. So let's talk about this middle card here. But before we do, take a peek at this. This is wild. We've got the Five of Pentacles here in reverse, and then we have the Hierophant, which is a 5 card in the major arcana. Now, that's why, I mean, that just like, that's like a fun little synchronicity, but it's also wild because the reading I did before this that I've already mentioned, that I'm going to link up in the description box, we had something similar happen where a 7 and a 7 came out, and one was a 7 major arcana and one was a 7 minor arcana. But I'm thinking this is even more wild because they're both in reverse, so it's just kind of like blowing my mind. But I definitely think part of that message is like, you know, 5s to me often represent some sort of like conflict, chaos, turmoil that we have to go through in order to get to more of who we are supposed to be, in order to experience more healthy, joyful living more often, in order to feel more of that holistic inner peace. And so I think there's something here about just like surrendering a bit to that you're not doing it wrong, you're actually doing it right as you are experiencing this frustration and willing to look at this frustration. It's actually leading to a lot of beauty, a lot more capacity, a lot more understanding, which leads to wisdom. And with wiser choices, more healthy, joyful living is natural. So the Hierophant in reverse is in the position of the why this is so frustrating. So we had the Queen of Swords in reverse for like what is actually frustrating you under the obvious thing. Why is frustrating you is the Hierophant in reverse. And so this is a really powerful message because I think that to me the Hierophant upright typically represents dogma in some sense. That's how I typically interpret it. So it could be religious dogma, it could be the dogma of your family, it could be the dogma of your culture. So the beautiful thing here is this frustration that has made itself known is actually a beautiful symptom that you are detoxing dogma in your life. And I think that is always a good thing, because dogma to me is kind of like, is like a giving up of the High Priestess. It's a giving up of that empowered energy. Because I think, you know, High Priestess energy, she knows for herself, right? She does not need a savior. She does not need, she of course gets support and gets educated and is resourceful, is resourced. But she always chooses for herself and she knows for herself, right? And I feel like dogma is just like the opposite of that, right? It's somebody else telling us what to do for their own purposes. And typically, I think probably always, those purposes are not kind or helpful or win-win, right? And so I think it's just so beautiful that at the center of your reading, you have an indication that you are detoxing dogma. This is why this discomfort is so difficult, though, because you are doing things differently than the dogmatic way you did it before. And I don't mean to call you like, like a dogmatic person. I mean more like you are breaking free from convention that does not work. So whether that's some sort of conventional, like religion, whether that's some sort of, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what sort of dogma you're breaking free from. All I know is in my bones, I can feel it's very, very healthy for you. And it is also very revealing. You know what I mean? It's like the dogma is kind of the dogma in all of our lives, again, whether it's religious or otherwise, almost puts on like this false suit of armor, right? And then we like go out into the world and we like connect with each other on dogma, but we all, we got this armor up, so we're not actually connecting, but we're like, don't have to be vulnerable. But when we take that armor off, when we take the armor of dogma off, it is so destabilizing, right? And we all have to do that if we are more and more going to live the high priestess energy, which is I choose for myself. I see clearly what I need more and more and more, versus somebody else telling me what is right for me. And so I think this is just like this beautiful sign that that part of the reason this frustration is so frustrating, part of the reason this discomfort is so uncomfortable, is because you're having to deal with the actual discomfort while you're also detoxing dogma. And so you don't have that false comfort of whatever dogmatic ways you had before, because we have to be honest with ourselves. There's a reason we are all attracted to dogma, right? It's because there is some sort of comfort in it, right? I think it's wise for us to be honest about that. Otherwise, if we demonize dogma completely, it's hard for us to understand why we might get into situations, or why we got into situations in the past that were dogmatic, right? So I think just being gentle with yourself, realizing that like what you're doing is very healthy, detoxing dogma, and it adds a layer of discomfort to the obvious discomfort, right? So whatever, again, obviously you're experiencing, whether it's in the realm of finances or health or relationships or career or so on and so forth, you have that going on. And then you also have the added layer of discomfort of like, you're deconstructing dogma instead of putting the armor of dogma up. And so I think just being really kind and gentle with yourself is important, because you're really doing powerful healing work here. And the kind of the nuances and like discomforts within the discomforts, the frustrations within the frustrations that you're feeling, they really want to be validated in this reading as very, very natural, as you doing an indication that you are doing it right, not wrong. So there's like a paradoxical energy here of like almost the more frustrated you feel, the more of an indication you can have that you're actually doing the healing right. Now, as I say that, I don't mean to like be like, oh, just stay, don't get support and just stay in, that rabbit hole of frustration. But hopefully you understand what I mean. I think this is more of like a energetic hug, a spirit wanting to acknowledge that there's layers of complexity and layers of frustration on top of the obvious frustration. And all of that requires energy to deal with, and insight to understand, and that is the work that you're doing. And it's not easy work, and it's not quick, but you're clearly on the path, and it's leading you to this high priestess. So the high priestess is almost like what it's leading you to / what needs to be embodied more and more, baby step by baby step, to find more relief. So I just find such beauty in that, and it's like just the straight up opposite of the Hierophant, isn't it? Like dogma versus deep understanding, insight, and intuition. So this path that you're on, I sense that you've had to have a lot of courage and a lot of willingness up until this point. It's really, oh my gosh, you can't make this up. Look at this. We've got the frustration card here. It's like trying to land, right? Square peg, round hole, right? And then look at here in the Hierophant, it's almost like has landed, which is like funny. It's like saying, I think it's like saying like as you are detoxing dogma, even a square peg can land in a round hole. Like you don't even have to find the square hole. It's not fitting because the dogma is too narrow. But if you get a wider round hole, it can fit and land and not be so frustrating. That is wild. Wow, that's really wild. So it's like you are expanding the whole. Sounds so weird, but hope you understand what I mean. Like that's what detoxing dogma can do. We have more capacity. We see things from broader, more holistic lenses, and then we're not. And then the problem isn't even square peg round hole. It's just that it didn't have a big enough basin. It didn't have a big enough container to put in. And here you're expanding that container for it to land and have that frustration settle so that you do not have to experience this forevermore. And I really do believe that frustrations are supposed to be more acute than they typically are for us humans. And I say that not to, like, if this has been a longstanding problem, I have many of those myself. So this is not to say that, you're doing it wrong. And I think the more we embody High Priestess energy and we're willing to look at our frustrations with understanding, the less time they have to take resolving themselves. And so you're definitely on this powerful, powerful path forward of removing blocks through understanding, through the detoxing of dogmas that allow for the beautiful energy of freedom, passion, desire, flow to be naturally present in your life. And then just to circle back, I think then the message is really looking at where you need to protect that flow, where those boundaries need to be put in place. Because a part of, I think, removing the blocks is actually establishing that protection. Because sometimes the blocks are the outside energies, outside influences, getting into those porous boundaries, right? But if we can strengthen those boundaries, then a lot of times those blocks then aren't, we've removed them, then protected. And we've protected not ourselves from, in a way where it's like we're defensive and keeping power over somebody, but instead we're just protecting our own self energy. And the more that we are establishing that, the more the blocks naturally fall. And what is natural for us to experience, which is our own innate gifts and abilities, but then also what is everybody's natural inheritance, which is love and kindness and peace and joyfulness, becomes our more day in, day out, moment in, moment out experience. So thank you so much for tuning in. This is a powerfully dynamic, bold, complex reading. And truly what wants to be said is both validation for how far you've come and what you have been doing in terms of your inner work and your healing, and an invitation to continue to do it because you really are on the right track, en route to detoxing beliefs aligned with lack and scarcity, and embodying the High Priestess energy.